All right, let's jump right in. Have you ever stopped to think that your keyboard might actually be more powerful than a ballot box? It's a huge idea, right? In this explainer, we are going to dive into how the computer has totally reshaped our democracy. And yep, that's for better and for worse.
No, really, I want you to think about that question for a second. Is your keyboard a ballot box? I know, it sounds a little dramatic, but think about it. Every single time you post something, share an article, or even just hit like, you're taking part in a political act. The tools we use every single day have turned us from just a passive audience into, well, active players in this whole democratic process.
Okay, so to really wrap our heads around this, we've got to go back to basics. Let's talk about the fundamental link between information and democracy. Because honestly, what you know, and maybe more importantly, how you find it out, that's everything.
You see, at its heart, democracy isn't just about showing up to vote every few years. It's a system that absolutely relies on two key ingredients: people who are informed and people who actively participate. If you take away access to good, solid information, that second part, the whole participation thing, it just becomes, well, meaningless, right? You can't make smart choices if you're in the dark about what's really going on.
And this is a really important point to get. Technology itself, it's neutral. It's just a tool. A computer is kind of like a hammer, you know? You can use it to build something incredible, or you can use it to tear something down. It all comes down to how it's designed and how we choose to use it. And that simple fact sets the stage for a massive shift in our story.
So let's start with what you might call the problem in this whole story. The media landscape of the not-so-distant past. I kind of think of it as the age of the megaphone. You had a few super powerful voices just broadcasting out to everyone else.
Just try to picture what this was actually like. Information was basically a one-way street. It flowed from, say, a big TV network or a couple of major newspapers, and it was beamed right into your living room. You were just a passive consumer, taking it all in. And because access was so tightly controlled by these huge corporations or even the government, the number of different voices you got to hear was, well, it was tiny.
And this quote, man, it just sums it up perfectly. The very structure of the technology at the time turned most of us into passive consumers of infotainment. It's like we were listening in on the big conversation, sure, but we were totally locked out of the room where it was actually happening.
But then, boom, everything changed. The internet arrived. And it didn't just give us a new tool, it completely flipped the script. It offered a radical, brand new model for how we could have a conversation. This right here, this is the game changer in our story.
I mean, just look at this shift. That one-way street, it became a two-way dialogue. Passive consumption, that turned into active, interactive participation. And maybe most important of all, a system that limited voices suddenly became a platform where literally anyone with a keyboard could be a creator. The megaphone was replaced by a network, a huge network.
You know, this new reality, it actually started to make a decades-old dream come true. A dream from the playwright Bertolt Brecht. He had this vision of a system where the line between the creator and the consumer just disappears, where every single person could be both a sender and a receiver of information. And for the very first time, the internet made that technically possible on a global scale. It's pretty wild.
So this massive technological shift didn't just give us a bunch of new toys to play with. It actually created entirely new arenas for political life to happen. It built what we can call the new public spheres in cyberspace.
And look, this isn't some abstract academic idea. This stuff is happening in very real, tangible ways. I'm talking about something as simple as an email between a couple of friends sharing a political article, or something as organized as a community bulletin board where neighbors plan a local protest. It's happening on those fiery debate websites and in the non-stop flow of real-time chat rooms. These are all brand new places for democracy to happen.
So what this all boils down to is that the internet is fundamentally expanding our entire idea of what democracy even is and where it can happen. You know, the classic public square is no longer just a physical spot in the middle of town. It's now also a digital space, and it's open 24/7.
But, and this is a big but, this is where our story starts to get a lot more complicated. Because this super powerful new tool, it's not a magic wand. It's not going to fix all our political problems overnight. In fact, it brings a whole new set of challenges to the table that, honestly, we are still trying to figure out. Which brings us to a massive question. Is just being active online enough? There's this very real danger of what people call slacktivism. You know what I mean?
where we feel like we're being really politically active just by posting or sharing something, but all that digital energy never actually translates into any real-world change.
So you can really see the double-edged sword we're dealing with here. For every single promise, there's a potential pitfall lurking right behind it. The promise of more people participating, that's shadowed by the risk that it just replaces real-world action. The promise of having access to endless information, that creates the very real challenge of information overload. And empowering all these new voices, well, that means we all need new skills to figure out the difference between good information and, frankly, junk.
And this right here might be the single most important point of this entire discussion. To make all this new democratic potential a reality, we can't just be passive users scrolling through feeds. We have to actively build a whole new set of skills. I'm talking about critical thinking, media savviness, and the ability to find truth in a giant sea of noise. The crazy thing is, the technology now requires more of us, not less.
So here we are, right back where we started. The technology for a more engaged, more participatory democracy, it's here. It exists. The megaphone is gone, replaced by a massive network. The fundamental question isn't about the tools anymore. It's about us. The question is, what are we going to build with them?